Let me tell you a story. I first saw the lady in a newspaper clipping. She wasn't looking at the camera, not quite, though I felt certain she knew where it was. The thing that caught my attention wasn't her beauty, which was undeniable even in the poor quality of the print. It was something about her posture, so perfectly uncaring that it couldn't be coincidence. She wasn't even in the center of the picture, nor was she the subject of my research, little more than an adjacent article, yet she dominated both the picture and the page. I must have spent a full 10 minutes staring at the picture, trying to tease out any clues as to who she was or what relation she had to the others. Although it could have been any color due to the black and white picture, I was sure that her dress was red. Somehow it didn't seem like it could be any other, that such a lady would wear anything but red. I could make out jewels on her throat and ears, a ring on a gloved hand. She was very modern, but not overly so. Did the others know her? She wasn't the only woman in the picture, though the others faded into the background, faces blurred into the print. The men wore mustaches and tuxedos. I fancied many of them were looking at her, or maybe one had made the joke she was laughing at. The men toasting at the front had not included her, yet the body of the one closest to her was turned as though he had just been talking to her when the photo was called. Can one really learn so much from a photo? I studied it hungrily, my original quest completely forgotten. I analyzed every possible interpretation of the body language, pored over extra detail in the article. The lady in red, if that was indeed the color she wore, was not mentioned. Not even a broad reading between the lines. Long before I returned the newspaper to the library, I knew that I was lost. I dove after the traces of her history obsessively. Without any name, I had little to go on. I searched for other articles of the people in the photo with her. I picked up papers and magazines at random, hoping for a glimpse of her. Despite everything, she remained elusive. That is, until I had already given up, forcibly put her from my mind and returned to what I'd been working on previously. And there she was. A smile that was at once calculating and beatific. A sideline in the cultural news a few years ago, a few years after the first picture I'd found, how a wealthy benefactor, apparently her, had sponsored a new opera. The man next to her looked thoroughly startled, his body tipped away from her. I wondered if it was her he was frightened of, or just the fact that it was a woman who'd paid his wages. The article was too short to provide any details, and did not mention her name. It was maddening. Like before, the picture only provided scant information. The only thing I felt sure of, yet again, was that her dress was red. So it goes. History reluctantly coughs up hints and teases of her every few years, once I've completely lost hope. She is a wealthy benefactor, someone's wife, a philanthropist, someone's mistress. She is never named, and she is always wearing red. She frustrates me to no end, this lady in red. Something about her in every picture I see hints that she is as cruel as she is lovely, ruthless and ambitious, or is that just what society says a rich woman in red must be? I'd like to think I'm enough of a feminist to have moved past all that, and that my judgment of her is based on rational analysis, and yet I know it's little more than a feeling or intuition. Without a name, however, I cannot check the record to know what history has written of her, and so my feelings are all I have. They won't serve as a citation, of course. And while this is far from an academic paper, I hesitate to add the most recent bit of information I found. It comes from an obscure regional paper discussing how the homes of the rich and famous went to ruin during the Depression or were seized by the banks. A small accompanying picture includes an unkept woman being led away from a crumbling building. There is little to suggest it's the same woman. There is not nearly enough detail in the image to be sure. Her hair is messed. One hand still clutches a mostly empty whiskey bottle. And as if to seal the deal, she is clearly wearing black. And yet, something about her eyes, the sideways way she seems to know the camera is there, something there tells me that it is her. This doesn't answer nearly enough of my questions and only adds more. Is that the ending of her story? Did she wither into the abyss? Did she return after the Depression to continue her work? I have combed through the papers in the years after with no luck. But perhaps as she does, she will find me again, years after I've given up, to drip another clue into her life. Cruel indeed, in death as she was, maybe in life, the lady in red or black continues to haunt me. The citations of the news stories where I have encountered her are enclosed herein, and I welcome any readers who may have information about her to contact me.